Welcome to the People Leaders Podcast, the audio resource for managers and business leaders creating high-performing teams. Join leadership and team development experts Jan and Michelle Turkelson each week as they explore both subjects from every angle. Through practical tips, valuable insights, and compelling interviews with leadership experts around the world, you'll learn how to bring out the best in your staff and how to give your best as a leader.
Michelle here. So what are we going to do today, Jan? We are going to take people through, I suppose, a high-level introduction of our high-performing team framework. And I love our high-performing team framework. It really is the cornerstone of the work that we have been focusing on for the last 15 or so years. Yeah, and we have been privileged enough to be coaches and facilitators to a number of teams in different organisations, and we've found that there are some really key elements that make a team hum. Yep. And we want to just take you through that high level. Yep. And dig into a little bit of the detail around what holds it together and perhaps what your next steps are. So at the end of our chat, what would people walk away knowing that they didn't before, would you say? The 8, I suppose, elements or faces that create the high-performing team, and also the structure, the 3 dimensions, and just understanding that every situation has 3 components to it, because then it's really you're more effective at being able to solve a problem. So when you say every situation has those 3 components, what do you mean? So the 3 components are the situational context. You have to understand what is the current reality that you or your team are going through. So that's one. Mm-hmm. So it could be lots of change, or it could be, a new CEO, or... or it could be business as usual. That's the situation. The second element is the people leader. Who is leading the team, giving direction, supporting, coaching, and clarifying. Mm-hmm. And the skill and ability and the positive attitude of the people leader is absolutely going to impact the context. Mm-hmm. And then the third element is the team itself. So those 3 elements make up the high-performing team, and also any situation that you go into. So it's almost like that sits over this thing that we're calling the high-performing team. Yeah, so it's the thing that holds it together in a way. Yeah, that meta model, I suppose. Okay. Yeah. Right. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, Michelle, is we're talking about high performance, and you mentioned before that years ago it was all around highly effective teams. It was all about being highly effective. Yeah, and you might be effective. However, if you don't understand the context, you may not perform well. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you have to really look at those 3 elements. Mm-hmm. In a highly high-performing team, you also have members that are highly motivated and also satisfied. And those are the elements that this high-performing team framework takes into consideration as well. I was just going to say, Jan, that when we've gone into teams that have either been working okay or they've been dysfunctional, a lot of what we're talking about here is performance. This isn't about, are we all, happy buddies? Yeah. No, it's not about that. This is about performance. And when we look at some of the reasons that can be attributed to performance issues, a lot of them is, sort of stems around this area of having really unclear expectations, not being really clear about what it is that I'm supposed to be doing or what we're supposed to be achieving as a team. It could be around skill deficits. People within the team don't either have the skills or the resources in order to do their role. And another element is this lack of motivation. This is, squarely where the team leader or the people leader plays an important role. Yeah, because engaged team members are more likely to display behaviours that go beyond just their job descriptions and their role requirements. This is when you can really leverage the strength of a team, because team members are going to help and support each other. Oh, you can tell an engaged team because they are looking out for one another.
they go above and beyond, and they make sure that, Sally over here isn't staying back till all hours where I could be helping her out because I know I've done what I had to do for the day. That sort of thing.
So high performance, satisfied, high motivation, really key
engaged.
elements.
Yep, definitely.
So when we talked about those three elements, what we're also talking about is the high performing team becomes an entity in itself. So it becomes quite complete. It has a sphere of influence. It has a reputation. It can be affected by other stakeholders or entities, but it also has its own orbit. And, when you have an entity that is holistic and it works really well, you're going to draw to you like-minded situations, people and events that support that energy.
Yep.
So we're going a little bit wah-wah here, Michelle, but
I think is the term.
but I believe it to be true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like attracts like.
Yep.
So we've already talked about the three dimensions of a high-performing team. So understand what your context is, and does every member in your team agree on what the context is? Because someone said, oh my God, this is like a lot of change is happening, but someone else might say, you think that's a lot of change? I think this is business as usual. And so you're going to have a different way of seeing the world. So I think understanding what context is in a team is really important.
And I'll come back to the people leader again. It's part of their role to interpret the context for their team members, because they're out and about in the context more often than the team members.
And they have more information too, privy to it.
Absolutely. So let's move on. So we've had a look at that. So let's move on to what we consider, it's almost like the 8 faces of the high-performing team framework. And these 8 faces are almost like 8 elements that make up a high-performing team.
And they are. The first one is direction. Does the people leader and the team understand the purpose, the vision, why they're here, what it is that the team needs to achieve? So it really focuses on goals and objectives for the team. So it really has that strong emphasis on performance and achievement. Yep.
Look, at the end of the day, this is why we put it at the top.
Number one,
because it is the most important. Clarity, and one of Jan's catchphrases, you'll pick it up as we go on, clarity. She uses it all the time. And I'm a big one for that. I do agree. If you are clear about what it is you're trying to achieve, even in your personal life, you are more likely to hit that target. We in our workshops, we talk about, SMART objectives, specific, measurable, blah, 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 with a time frame. The more clearer you are about the target that you're trying to hit, the more likely you are to hit that target.
Yeah, because you know when you're on track and you know when you're off track.
Yeah.
And when you were just saying my favourite, C word is clarity. Michelle Bridges is consistency. Her 3 favourite words, consistency.
There you go.
So the next one is interactions.
That's right. And interactions is just about the interpersonal relationships that exist within the team and amongst team members.
Team cohesion, collaboration.
Oh, and the potential for conflict sits within this realm as well. So it's not... So, one of the old dimensions that they talked about was either task or people. When you have a look, and everything in a sense can sort of almost come back to that.
Yep.
What we're talking about here are the people side of things. How well do we interact, support one another?
Trust,
respect, one
another.
Yeah, all of those.
And even just those 2 words, Michelle, how often when we're asking people in teams, what are the things that you think are the most important? It's trust and respect. And people are going to have different definitions for that as well.
And that is a conversation for another time, but definitely a worthwhile conversation just to unpack that a little bit. So the next one is accountability. So tell us about accountability, Jan.
This refers to clarity of roles, what you're responsible for, what the team is accountable for as well. So every team member is really clear about how their performance will be assessed. They understand their role in the task that they're doing, their relationship role, their roles around conflict, and really it's a set of behaviours associated with your particular job, position and team. So it's all about accountability.
Yeah, roles, responsibilities, accountabilities. Am I clear about what I am accountable to produce?
Yeah, and what I'm responsible for. Yeah. And ultimately, you know, we talk about responsibility, accountability. I'm responsible completely for my job, but the people leader is accountable. Yeah, so there is a little bit of a conversation that teams can have around that. So the next base that we're going to talk about is process. So team processes refer to how the team get the job done.
And this is really, so what are we doing? Are we moving widgets from here to here? Are we creating documents for management to review and sign off? What is the work that we're doing? And that's a process. Any job that we do is a process and can be sort of, its basic elements can be boiled down to a process. And so
which is an input, transform, and you get an output. That's a process. And even looking at that as a process perspective of everything, it allows you to be a little bit more broader in the way in which you look at things. So even if, does your team have processes around meetings? Do they have processes around problem solving, decision making, conflict resolution?
So I suspect that a lot of teams have processes around task.
Yeah.
So the task comes in, I do X, hand it off to Y. However, what teams don't necessarily do is go the next step and say, so do we have a process around how we are going to communicate? Is it via email? Is it via a meeting every week? Is it? So that's why process is pretty important.
The next facet is service. And this is how team members deal with relationships to external members of the team. So this is all around stakeholders. So around your customers, whether or not they're internal or external.
And this is one that we added a couple of years ago, wasn't it, Jan? Because the larger the organisation, the more... It's almost like there are more moving parts internally within an organisation, and one team doesn't necessarily have exactly the same goal as you. They might have the same end goal, and it might be to please the end customer, whether you're a bank or you're a transport company. However, it means you need to coordinate your efforts with other teams within that organisation.
Yeah, because one team's, role might be it's all around immediacy and response, where another team's it's about quality or flexibility or dependability. So every team may have a different focus, but the more we can communicate to make sure that we're supporting each other for the end strategy, the more effective and high performing.
So my litmus test, if you know you have a good relationship with your stakeholders, if I was to ask you the question, what do you think your stakeholders think of you? That they would be able to respond, and then I could go and ask the stakeholder and they would respond in the same way. Or they say, yeah, we talk to our stakeholders about this all the time. Or we ask them for feedback all the time. Or in fact, even better, my stakeholder's in the room today in our planning session. It's those sort of things that you're, they're on it. Definitely on it. So what's the next one, Jan?
Is growth. This is about growth, development and opportunities that exist for team members to build their knowledge, experience and skills to do their job, and also to seek advancement.
And why is this particularly important now? I mean, if I answer my own question...
Yes, answer your own question.
I will answer my own question, Jan. It's all, a lot of people... particularly coming into organisations now, come from a pretty high level of education. They have aspirations, things that they want to achieve, and it's not just about growth in terms of my skills and expertise to do this job. It's about me growing as a person and learning new things and being able to take that on to use in whatever role or job or organisation I work with in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is flow. This is the level and degree of communication that exists between team members. So how clear is a communication that each team member has internally? Like how well do we communicate what we're going through, what our biggest obstacle is, who our cheekiest stakeholder is, we're really clear about what it is, your pain points, and what are you really good at, because this is where you can leverage the strength of the team.
I know, and I think one of the really important questions is, what is my intention in this communication? Like, if you could just keep that up your sleeve as a reference point whenever you're sending an email, whenever you're about to step into a meeting, whenever you're going to have a performance conversation.
End result.
Yeah.
So that's what you're focusing
what is my
on.
intention?
Yeah, beautiful. And renewal. That's the next facet in the
and this, Jan, is something that we have only recently added, haven't we?
We like adding.
Yeah, we like adding and refining.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this really does refer to the team and the team members' ability to cope with stress and build resilience. We cannot stress strongly enough the importance of being able to build resilience individually, and for a people leader to create an environment where people have the ability to renew and bounce back and cope with some of the stresses that are happening within the context, within the organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all the 8 faces of the high-performing team. And if you were to download the high-performing team assessment tool, you would get 5 different questions within those faces that make up the whole tool. So there are 40 key metrics that give you a really grounded look and vision of where your team is at now. And you can use that as a benchmark now and do it in 6 months' time or 12 months' time.
So when you say you can do that now as a benchmark, what do you mean, Jan?
So it means that your team, you can download the high-performing team tool, you can hand it out.
So what does the tool look like? So it's a set of questions?
Yeah, a set of questions.
Yep.
And it's rated on a scale of 0 to 7, and then you rate it. So how clear you are, or how well you are observing doing that behaviour. So I might rate it as a 4, but another team member might rate it as a 2. And so you could aggregate that, or put a medium, and so you would get a rating for every metric on the high performing team.
And then you've got data.
Yeah.
Decision-based data. You can work with that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Because if you want to improve something, you've got to measure it. Yeah. Totally. Or if you want to manage something, you've got to measure it. We've also developed a couple of programs around the high-performing team tool. And some of these programs are, if you have a team that's quite new, we show you how to use the high-performing team with a new team. And we go through how to establish a benchmark using the high-performing team tool. We show you how to develop levels of awareness in yourself and others. We build a behavioural profile of the team. We identify strengths and talents. And we introduce 3 key skilling intervention models based on the results of the high-performing team.
Because every team... And I mean, even in one workshop, and they were all people leaders, they all filled out the high-performing team tool, and there was such a difference. Same organisation, but each of the people leaders answered the questions on behalf of their team, and everybody had a key strength in one of the areas, whether it's direction or flow or service.
Yeah.
And so there's even variations, and this was, not a large organisation.
So, we can work with new teams. We can also work with teams that just need a little bit of a reset. And we review their key processes, how they make decisions, how they complete tasks, and we give them a little bit of a skills uplift. And the other program that we do is team overhaul. So these are teams that want a bit of an overhaul because they've gone through change, or, a lot of members of the team.
An overhaul could be because they're highly dysfunctional. Could be an area that we've worked with teams just not performing well. Their performance is really low, morale is low, and it's showing in the quality of the work that they're producing also.
So if you download the high performing team assessment, you will be able to see how team members perceive the team and how they think it's functioning in relation to those 8 facets. It will provide you with a collective view of the current health of the team, and it'll show the team where they are in comparison to a high-performing team. And
because a high-performing team would be rating 7 on all of the scales, yeah?
Yep. It also presents where the team's opportunities for development and growth are, and like I mentioned before, a benchmark of where the team are in relation to those 40 key metrics, that combine to make up that high-performing team. If you want to work with us, we would love to work with you. We love working with people who really are clear about what it is that they want. Yeah, so, and we can help people to get clear about what success looks like. So we can help you with coaching. We also do facilitation and also with our training programs. So if you want to work with us, we would love to be able to support you.
Thank you for joining us on the People Leaders Podcast. For show notes and other resources, please visit us at peopleleaderspodcast.com. If you have a leadership or management question or subject you'd like covered on the podcast, please contact us at podcast@peopleleaders.com.au. The People Leaders Podcast is brought to you by the Experts On Air Podcast Network.